Hi everyone, it's Hannah and Cailin back again with Double Talk. Today we're doing another edition of Double Talk Asks, and we have a very interesting topic today. Of course, our world is right in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, and there's news coming at us from just all angles. I think it makes sense to want to believe every shred of positive news that you read during a scary time like this, because you're kind of grasping at that positivity, which I totally understand. But there's a man out there, he owns the Twitter account @PickPedant. His name is Paolo.
Very nice guy.
Very nice guy. We just talked to him. He's on a mission to debunk these viral internet posts that go around. It's very important, especially relating to the virus, to make sure you're informed. And I think he shows us that now more than ever, it's important to look at the things that you see on the internet with a more critical eye. So stay tuned for a conversation with @PickPedant about his process for debunking these viral internet posts. Listen in. We're talking to a web developer, so obviously you're very technologically advanced. We are not, but how would you describe to somebody how you go about debunking a viral post? Just tell us a little bit about your process.
The first thing I do is take the image to TinEye. TinEye is a reverse image search engine which collects images and images that are similar to those images and tracks where they were first posted and how they propagated across the internet. So it shows you different sites that image has come out on, and then shows you when those images were posted and what contexts they were posted in. It's not always reliable because it's crawling imagery on the internet can be inaccurate at best, but it's a good way to get a feel for how long that image has been around and where it's been. And then sometimes I'll go over to Google image search also and see other contexts that image has been posted in, and hopefully either of those two image searches will give me an idea of where the image came from, of its origins. And TinEye is also very good about showing how the image has changed. They have a most changed option which shows you variations on the image, what kind of edits it's been through, that kind of thing. If that doesn't work, sometimes a phrase search for the caption will show something and you'll get something on Reddit. It's usually Reddit. 90% of the time it's something that got posted to Reddit and got scraped to one of these big spam bots. And so sometimes the Reddit post will have context, sometimes the Reddit post will just reflect the error, but sometimes someone in the comments will have a pointer.
Do you find that most of the time they're intentionally spreading fake news or fake posts or fake photos, or do you think a lot of the time it's one person was misinformed and started a chain of spreading, and then other news outlets picked it up and it continued to be shared incorrectly?
Definitely it's the latter. Usually it is. A lot of these viral picture accounts are really just scraping, as we call it. They're really just picking up images that they've seen elsewhere. Very often they're not even it's not even people tweeting it. It's just
right.
It's just a bot that is loaded up with a queue of viral images, usually from Reddit or from Imager or from iFunny or from Tumblr and or from Pinterest, and then they just loop through captions that they've copy-pasted from other places. So if a caption is inaccurate, then the bot amplifies the misinformation.
Do you tend to notice that misinformation originates on some random person on Twitter, or a lot of times do you find that it starts on legitimate news sources that have been misinformed?
No. Most often, it is someone on Reddit who is miscaptioning a photo either because they misunderstood the photo or they really want that Reddit karma. And, it gets more upvotes on Reddit if it has a much more melodramatic caption. That's usually
right.
90% of the time.
That's what I figured. So we have to talk a little about, obviously the number one thing in the world now is the coronavirus posts and people trying to find hope in posts, whether it's true or not.
Searching for some good news.
You've been involved with other internet sleuths online who have debunked some of these viral posts, more feel-good posts that have been going around. Just one example, obviously, are the dolphins and the swans are returning to the Venice canals because of lack of pollution, you know.
And the drunk elephants.
And the drunk elephants. Do you think that this is somebody that just so badly wants it to be true that they've sort of spread false news, or do you think that it's somebody who, like you said, is just trying to get those likes and trying to get the Reddit karma, as you put it on Reddit?
There are three major factors at play here. One is, the desire to find a silver lining to this cloud by finding, well, what good is coming out of this, and seeing the revival of nature in the face of a receding humanity. But and then over and above that, there's also the desire for virality. There's the euphoria of getting clicks, getting likes, getting retweets, getting faves, getting boosts, and so on. But there's a third, slightly more sinister. Factor at play, which I've seen called ecofascism, which is the idea that in order for nature to rise up, humanity, or at least certain segments of the population of humanity, have to be killed. And I'm not saying that people are actively being eco-fascists in posting these, but there are people who would seize upon that. There are people who would seize upon that for eco-fascistic ends, to push the idea that humanity needs to be exterminated, or certain parts of humanity need to be exterminated. I'll let you extrapolate from there what that means, but
It takes a much darker turn from just happy photos that you see, but there are always people out there who are going to take something to the extremes. So it's not surprising, unfortunately. I think it's funny that right off the bat in your Twitter bio, you call yourself a killjoy. It makes me kind of think that I feel like there must be some part of you who wishes that a lot of these uplifting stories that you share are in fact true and not just spreading false information or false photos. What inspired you to become the bearer of bad news, so to speak? How long have you been doing this? How did you get started doing this?
Why you?
Why? How did you become the bad news guy?
Once upon a time, I worked for NASA. I was a contractor for NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. I was doing communications and media. Mostly I was a video editor and a web developer for a contractor that would send me to NASA for part of the week. It was very fun. I'm a huge space fan, and I'm a huge science fan. And I would sometimes see images being posted ostensibly of space that were really not space. They were 3D renders, they were photoshops, they were stock illustrations being passed off as satellite imagery. And a friend of mine who also worked at NASA, replied to one of them once saying, "No, just no. That's not space." And I jumped off from there and said, maybe I should start something that scolds these guys scolds these accounts for trying to pass off these fakes as space imagery. I could call it Pick Scolder. And I ran as Pick Scolder for about 10 minutes before I thought, no, I'm being pedantic here. We need a better name.
But it's interesting because in this example, you're somebody who works at NASA, so you know what space looks like and you know what real imagery looks like. But they're preying on people who have the average person has no idea what space looks like because they don't work at NASA. So it's almost like you can look at it like you're not so much, the killjoy or the bearer of bad news, but you need to get rid of, as somebody who knows so much about a certain area or anything about in general, if you get rid of the false, you make more room for what's true. Yeah. And that is kind of a positive way to look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
I still am aware sometimes that I come off as incredibly arrogant about this. But at the same time, that's the personality I've cultivated. I'm a pedant, so,
Right. Mm-hmm. It's like a character. It's a bit.
In retrospect, I should have done it anonymously, though.
Do you think that this is something that more people should pick up, or do we leave it to you?
I would love if I didn't have to do this, but it's not just keeping an eye out, but watch out for stuff that's too good to be true, and watch out for how it's position, because if it is framed as in a way that manipulates your emotions, then there's an agenda at play, I guess. I would say, and also just you know yeah, I don't want to make it too much about skepticism and just being suspicious of everything. I do not want to promote a kind of cultural paranoia that turns everyone into an internet fault finder like myself. Please don't end up like me. But I guess lately I've been trying to put out the message that maybe you're not supposed to be relying on spam bots that post re-scraped Reddit imagery so much as relying on yourself to find beauty in the world and go out and take your own photos and post them rather than go by second and third hand stuff that you find on some viral stream.
I love that. If it comes from you, you know it's real.